The morning air was crisp and still when Sergeant James Crawford took his position outside Gatcombe Park. He had protected Princess Anne for 3 years. Every day felt the same. Routine checks. Polite nods. Nothing ever happened, but today would be different. James stood by the east gate, watching the quiet country road that wound past the estate. The sun was barely up. Birds chirped in the hedgerows. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary. Then he heard it. A car engine. Not the gentle hum of a local farmer's truck. This was aggressive. Fast. Too fast for a residential road with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour. James straightened his posture. His training kicked in automatically. Something felt wrong. The sound grew louder, closer, through the morning mist. He saw it, a black Range Rover, racing down the narrow lane like a bullet. The driver wasn't slowing for the bend ahead. James's heart rate jumped. Princess Anne was scheduled to leave the estate in exactly 4 minutes for a charity event in Bristol. Her car would be pulling out of this very gate. He reached for his radio. "Control, this is Crawford. We have a speeding vehicle approaching the east gate. Excessive speed." Requesting, before he could finish, the Range Rover flew past him. The driver's face was a blur. Young male. Distracted. His head was turned. He's looking at something in the passenger seat. The vehicle wasn't slowing down. Not even a little. And just as James turned his head toward the estate entrance, Princess Anne's convoy began to roll out. The lead car cleared the gate. Then her vehicle, a dark blue Jaguar, started to pull onto the road. Everything happened in slow motion and lightning speed all at once. The Range Rover driver finally looked up. His eyes went wide. He yanked the steering wheel hard to the right, but at that speed, physics took over. The car began to skid. Tires screamed against asphalt. James didn't think. His body moved before his mind caught up. He sprinted toward the princess's car, his boots pounding the pavement. 20 meters. 15. 10. The driver of Princess Anne's Jaguar saw the danger and hit the brakes. But the Range Rover was already spinning out of control. It was going to hit them. Direct impact. Driver's side. Where Princess Anne was sitting, James reached the Jaguar just as the Range Rover completed its spin. Metal scraped against metal. Glass shattered. The sound was deafening, a violent crunch that echoed across the peaceful countryside. But something was different. The impact wasn't as catastrophic as it should have been, because James Crawford had thrown himself against the Jaguar's rear panel 1 second before collision. His weight, his momentum, his desperate shove had pushed the princess's car forward just enough. Just 6 inches. Maybe 8. The Range Rover's front end smashed into the Jaguar's rear quarter panel instead of the driver's door. The difference between life and death measured in the width of a hand. If you're watching this story unfold and want to hear more incredible true stories like this, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. James hit the ground hard. His shoulder blazed with pain. His vision blurred. But through the ringing in his ears, he heard the princess's voice. "Get the driver. Is he hurt? Even in danger." She thought of others first. James struggled to his feet and ran toward the crumpled Range Rover. Smoke was beginning to rise from the engine. The driver's door hung open at an odd angle. Inside, slumped over the steering wheel, was a young man. Early 20s. Blood trickled from his forehead, and on the passenger seat, face down, was a phone. Still playing a video, the driver had been watching his phone. While driving, at 60 miles per hour, on a country road where royalty traveled, James pulled the young man from the wreckage just as other security personnel arrived. The princess's protection officer was helping her from the Jaguar. She was shaken but unharmed. As paramedics loaded the unconscious driver into an ambulance, one of the responders looked at his identification. His face went pale. "Sir," he said quietly to James, "you need to see this." The driver's license showed a familiar surname. Not just any family. This was someone connected to royalty itself. The young man who nearly killed Princess Anne was Tom Parker Bowles' son, Camilla's grandson. James stared at the name on the license. Frederick Parker Bowles. age 22. The implications hit him like a second collision. This wasn't just any traffic accident. This was a diplomatic nightmare waiting to explode. Princess Anne approached slowly, her composure intact, despite the near-death experience. Her protection officer tried to guide her back to the damaged Jaguar, but she waved him off. "Let me see the boy," she said firmly. The paramedics were working quickly. Frederick was conscious now, moaning, his hand pressed against his bleeding forehead. His eyes were unfocused and confused. When he saw Princess Anne standing above him, his face crumpled. Recognition dawned through his fog of pain and shock. "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh God, no. What have I done?" Anne's expression remained neutral, but James caught something in her eyes. Not anger, not fear. Something closer to sadness. "You've had an accident," she said calmly. "The medics will take care of you." "I was watching. My phone. I didn't see... Frederick's voice broke. Tears mixed with blood on his face. "I could have killed you. I almost killed you." The weight of that truth hung in the air like smoke from the wreckage. Anne turned to James. "Are you injured, Sergeant?" His shoulder throbbed where he'd hit the ground, but he shook his head. "I'm fine, ma'am. Just bruised. You pushed the car." It wasn't a question. She had felt it. That sudden lurch forward. That tiny movement that had saved her life. "You put yourself between me and that vehicle." James didn't know what to say. He had done his job. Nothing more. Nothing less. But Anne reached out and placed her hand on his uninjured shoulder. "Thank you, James. Truly." Before he could respond to black vehicles screamed up to the scene. Doors flew open. Palace officials poured out, their faces tight with controlled panic. The senior officer, a man named Malcolm Pierce, took in the scene instantly. His gaze moved from Princess Anne to the wreckage to Frederick Parker Bowles being loaded into the ambulance. His expression darkened. "Is that who I think it is?" Malcolm asked quietly. James nodded once. Malcolm closed his eyes briefly, then pulled out his phone. "This needs to go up the chain. Immediately." Within minutes, the accident scene was swarming with officials. Police, palace security. Even a representative from Clarence House arrived within the hour, but the media hadn't gotten wind of it yet. The location was remote. The accident had happened early. There was a tiny window of time before this became national news. Malcolm pulled James aside. "Walk me through exactly what happened." Every detail. James recounted it all. The speeding car. His radio call. The desperate sprint. The collision. The phone on the passenger seat. He was distracted, James said. Completely distracted. At that speed, in that location, it's a miracle the princess is alive. Malcolm's jaw tightened. "And you're certain it was Frederick Parker Bowles? Tom's son?" "Positive. I saw his license." Malcolm rubbed his face. "This is going to be complicated. Very complicated." "Why?" James asked. "He broke the law. He nearly killed a member of the royal family. Whether he's connected or not shouldn't matter." "You're right. It shouldn't." Malcolm's tone was heavy. "But it will." Princess Anne was still at the scene, refusing to leave until she knew Frederick would be okay. She sat in one of the undamaged security vehicles, calmly answering questions from investigators. Her daughter, Zara Tyndall, arrived 20 minutes later. Having heard about the accident through family channels, she rushed to her mother, embracing her tightly. "I'm fine," Anne insisted. "Really? That young man needs attention more than I do." "That young man almost killed you," Zara said, her voice shaking with anger and relief. "That young man made a terrible mistake," Anne replied. "And he'll have to live with what nearly happened for the rest of his life. That's punishment enough." But others didn't see it that way. By noon, word had reached Buckingham Palace. King Charles was informed. And when he learned that his wife's grandson had nearly killed his sister, the situation became exponentially more delicate. Tom Parker Bowles arrived at the hospital where Frederick was being treated. His face was ashen. Photographers had already started to gather outside. Sensing a story, inside the hospital, Tom sat by his son's bedside. Frederick's head was bandaged. His arm was in a sling, but physically, he would recover. Emotionally was another matter. I could have killed her, Dad, Frederick kept saying. Princess Anne. I could have killed her because I was watching a stupid video on my phone. Tom had no words. What could he say? His son had committed the kind of careless act that could have changed history, and now both families would have to deal with the fallout. James Crawford stood outside the hospital. Still in his uniform, his shoulder wrapped in ice. Reporters were starting to ask questions. Who was the guard who pushed the car? How did he react so quickly? His phone rang. It was Malcolm. Don't talk to any press, Malcolm said. The palace is handling this carefully. Very carefully. What does that mean? James asked. It means politics are about to get involved. And when that happens, the truth gets complicated. The next morning, James woke to his phone buzzing nonstop. Texts from colleagues, calls from unknown numbers, emails from journalists. The story had broken. He turned on the television and saw his own face staring back at him. Grainy security footage showed him sprinting toward Princess Anne's car. The moment of impact. Him hitting the ground? Hero Guard saves Princess Anne from crash, the headline read. But beneath it, another headline crawled across the bottom of the screen. Driver identified as Camilla's grandson Palace silent. James felt his stomach tighten. This was exactly what Malcolm had warned about. His phone rang again. This time, it was a summons. He was wanted at Buckingham Palace. The drive through London felt surreal. James had been to the palace before for security briefings, but never like this. Never as the center of a national news story. He was shown into a private office where Malcolm waited with two other officials. Their expressions were grim. Sit down, James, Malcolm said. James sat, his injured shoulder protesting. First, how are you feeling? One of the officials asked. A woman named Victoria Hammond, Senior Communications Director. Bruised but fine. Good. Victoria folded her hands on the desk. Because we need to discuss how we're handling this situation. Handling it. James frowned. I filed my report. I told the truth. What else is there? Malcolm and Victoria exchanged a glance. The truth is complicated, Victoria said carefully. Frederick Parker Bowles made a serious error. He was driving recklessly. He was distracted by his phone. He nearly caused a tragedy. Those facts are undeniable. So what's the problem? James asked. The problem, Malcolm interjected, is that he's family. King Charles's stepson's son. Camilla is already under enormous public scrutiny. If this becomes a scandal about her grandson nearly killing Anna, beloved princess, the damage could be severe. James felt anger rising in his chest. So what are you saying? That we cover it up? No, Victoria said quickly. Absolutely not. But we need to manage the narrative carefully. Frederick will face consequences. Legal consequences. But we need to ensure this doesn't become a weapon used against the royal family. Against Camilla, you mean? James said bluntly. Victoria didn't deny it. The monarchy is fragile right now. Public trust is hard-won and easily lost. If this story is handled poorly, it could damage more than just Frederick's future. James stood up, his jaw tight. With respect, ma'am, I don't care about managing narratives. I care about the truth. A young man was driving recklessly, watching his phone, and nearly killed someone. That's the truth. Whether he's connected to royalty or not doesn't change that. Sit down. Sergeant, Malcolm said, his tone harder now. James sat. But his posture remained rigid. No one is asking you to lie, Malcolm continued. But we are asking you to be strategic in what you say publicly. The investigation will proceed. Frederick will be charged with dangerous driving. The facts will come out. But how they come out matters. And if I don't agree? James asked. The silence that followed was heavy. Then your career in royal protection is over, Victoria said quietly. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. James felt like he'd been punched. 3 years of service. 3 years of dedication. And now, because he wanted to tell the truth without political spin, he was being threatened. This is wrong, he said. Perhaps, Malcolm admitted. But it's necessary. James left the palace feeling hollow. As he walked through the gates, a crowd of reporters surged toward him. Sergeant Crawford, how does it feel to be a hero? Did you know the driver was Camilla's grandson? Is the palace covering this up? James pushed through without answering. His mind was spinning that evening. Princess Anne requested to see him. They met at Gatcombe Park, in the same location where the accident had occurred. The debris had been cleared away, but the scrape marks on the road remained. Anne stood with her hands in her coat pockets, looking at the spot where her car had been hit. I heard they spoke to you today, she said when James approached. At the palace? Yes, ma'am. I imagine they asked you to be careful with your words. James hesitated. Something like that. Anne turned to face him. James, I want you to know something. What you did was extraordinary. You saved my life. You acted without thinking of yourself. That kind of courage is rare. I was doing my job, James said. No, Anne shook her head. Your job was to protect me, but you risked your own life to do it. That's different. That's sacrifice. She paused, choosing her words carefully. There are people who want to control this story, to shape it, to protect certain interests. Her eyes met his. I am not one of those people. If you want to tell the truth, the complete, unfiltered truth, then I support that. Fully. James felt something loosen in his chest, even if it causes problems for the family. The family will survive, Anne said firmly. We always do. But a young man made a choice that could have ended my life. He needs to face the full consequences of that choice. Not a softened version designed to protect reputations. Your family might not agree, James warned. My family, Anne said with a slight smile, rarely agrees on anything. But I'm not asking for their permission. I'm telling you that if you speak honestly, I will stand behind you, no matter what. James felt gratitude wash over him. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, James, for my life. As Anne walked back toward the house, James pulled out his phone. He had received dozens of interview requests. He had ignored them all, but now he selected one. A reputable journalist, known for fair, thorough reporting. He typed a message. I'm ready to talk, but I'm telling the whole story. No edits. The response came within seconds. Meet me tomorrow and bring everything. James knew what he was risking. His career, his reputation, possibly his future in security work. But Princess Anne was right. The truth mattered more than comfort, and the truth was about to come out. The interview took place in a quiet hotel room in Bath. The journalist, Rebecca Morgan, had built her career on honest reporting without sensationalism. James trusted her as much as he could trust anyone in media. She set up a small recording device between them and looked at him seriously. Before we start, I need you to understand something, Rebecca said. Once this interview goes public, there's no taking it back. The palace will respond. The family will respond. Your life will change. Yes, I know, James said. His shoulder still ached, a constant reminder of what had happened. But I can't let this be swept under the rug. Not when someone nearly died because of reckless behavior. Rebecca pressed record. For the next 90 minutes, James told her everything. The speeding car. The phone on the passenger seat. Frederick's tears and apologies. The palace meeting. The pressure to manage the narrative. Did anyone explicitly ask you to lie? Rebecca asked. No, James admitted. But they made it clear that my career depended on being strategic with the truth. That's just lying with extra steps. And Princess Anne. What's her position? James smiled slightly. She told me to tell the truth. The whole truth. She said she'd stand behind me no matter what. That's significant, Rebecca said, making notes. It creates a divide within the family. And on one side, potentially others on another. The article was published 2 days later. The response was immediate and explosive. Royal Guard breaks silence. I was pressured to protect palace image. The headline read, beneath it, James's full account. The details of the accident. Frederick's distraction. The phone video. The palace meeting. All of it laid bare for the public to see. Social media erupted. Some praised James for his courage and honesty. Others accused him of betrayal, of airing private royal matters. But most people focused on Frederick. Camilla's grandson nearly killed Anne, and they tried to cover it up. One viral tweet claimed, "This is exactly why the royals need more accountability." Another read, "The palace was forced to respond." A carefully worded statement acknowledged the accident, confirmed that Frederick would face legal consequences, and praised Sergeant Crawford's swift and brave actions. But it didn't address the pressure James had described. That silence spoke louder than words. Tom Parker Bowles issued his own statement, apologizing on behalf of his son and thanking James for saving Princess Anne's life. His words seemed genuine, but the damage was done. Frederick himself remained hospitalized, not just for his physical injuries, but for his mental state. The weight of what he'd nearly done had triggered a breakdown. James received a formal letter from the palace. He was suspended pending an internal review. The language was diplomatic, but the message was clear. He had broken ranks. Malcolm called him that evening. "You've made powerful enemies," Malcolm said, his voice tired. "I hope you understand that." "I understand that I did the right thing," James replied. "The right thing doesn't always protect you," Malcolm said. "Watch your back, James." But not everyone was against him. Princess Anne went public with her support. In a rare personal statement, she commended James for his integrity and courage, both in saving my life and in telling the truth about what followed. The statement sent shockwaves through royal circles. Anne was essentially calling out her own family's attempt to manage the story. Zara. Tyndall liked a tweet supporting James. Peter Phillips. Anne's son gave an interview stating that transparency should always come first. Regardless of who's involved, the royal family was fracturing along generational lines. The older establishment wanted control and carefully managed images. The younger generation wanted honesty and accountability. King Charles found himself in an impossible position. His sister had nearly been killed by his stepson's son. His wife was being dragged into the scandal, and a guard who had heroically saved Anne was being punished for telling the truth. He called a private family meeting. James wasn't there, but he learned about it later through sources. The meeting was tense, voices raised. Camilla reportedly defended her grandson while acknowledging his terrible mistake. Anne stood firm that no special treatment should be given. Charles tried to find middle ground, but middle ground was becoming impossible. The legal system moved forward regardless of family politics. Frederick was charged with dangerous driving, using a phone while driving, and driving without due care and attention. His court date was set for 6 weeks out. James's suspension continued, but something unexpected happened. A crowdfunding campaign started online to support him. Stand with James Crawford, it was called. Within days, it raised over £200,000. "This money isn't for me," James told reporters when asked about it. "Donate it to road safety charities. 2 campaigns against distracted driving. Make something good come from this." His humility only increased public support. Meanwhile, Frederick's lawyer was preparing a defense. The lawyer argued that Frederick had suffered enough, that his remorse was genuine, that he had no prior offenses. But prosecutors had the phone. They had recovered the video he'd been watching. It was a comedy sketch. Nothing urgent or important. Just entertainment. He had nearly killed a princess because he wanted to watch something funny. The public wasn't sympathetic. 2 weeks after the accident, James received an unexpected visitor at his small flat. He opened the door to find Princess Anne standing there, alone except for one protection officer who waited by the car. "May I come in?" she asked. James was stunned. "Of course, ma'am. Please." His flat was modest. A 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but clean and organized. Anne sat on his small sofa and got straight to the point. "I want to hire you," she said. James blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Not as a palace guard. As my personal protection officer. Direct employment. You'd answer to me, not the palace security apparatus." I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Anne smiled. "You saved my life, James. And then you stood up for what was right even when it cost you. That's exactly the kind of person I want protecting me." "The palace won't like it," James said. "The palace," Anne said, with a hint of mischief in her eyes. "We'll have to adjust. I'm still a senior royal. I have certain privileges, and I'm exercising them." James felt emotion tighten his throat. After everything, after the suspension and the threats and the pressure, here was vindication. "It would be an honor, ma'am." Good Anne stood. "You'll start next month. After all this court business is settled, I want you to be able to testify freely if needed, without any appearance of improper influence." As she reached the door, she turned back. "Thank you again, James, for everything," after she left. James sat in his quiet flat, processing what had just happened. His career wasn't over. It was just beginning in a new direction. The day of Frederick's court appearance arrived with cold rain and gray skies. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered on one side. Supporters on the other. The protesters held signs. "No special treatment for royals, and justice for reckless driving." The supporters, mostly friends of Frederick's family, held signs reading "Forgiveness, not punishment," and he made a mistake. James arrived early, called as a witness. He wore a dark suit, his posture military straight, despite the tension in his healing shoulder. Inside the courtroom, Friedrich sat beside his lawyer, looking smaller than he had in the hospital. His face was pale, his bandage removed, but a scar still visible on his forehead. Tom Parker Bowles sat directly behind him, his hand on his son's shoulder. Camilla was not present. The decision had been strategic. Her appearance would have drawn too much media attention, potentially influencing the proceedings. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The prosecution laid out their case with clinical precision. They showed the security footage of the speeding. Range Rover. They presented the phone records proving Frederick had been streaming video at the time of the crash. They called accident reconstruction experts who testified that at the speed Frederick was traveling, if Sergeant Crawford hadn't intervened, Princess Anne would likely have been killed or critically injured. Then James was called to the stand. He swore his oath and sat down, very aware of every eye in the courtroom watching him. The prosecutor was methodical. "Sergeant Crawford, please describe what you observed on the morning of the incident." James recounted it all again. The sound of the engine, the speeding vehicle, the distracted driver, his desperate sprint, the collision. "In your professional opinion, what would have happened if you hadn't pushed the vehicle?" the prosecutor asked. "The Range Rover would have struck the driver's side door at approximately 50 to 60 miles per hour, James said steadily. "At that speed, with that angle of impact, survival would have been unlikely." A murmur went through the courtroom. "And you observed the defendant's behavior immediately after the crash?" "Yes. He was disoriented and distressed. When he realized what had happened, he became very emotional. He said, 'I could have killed her multiple times.'" The defense lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was experienced, expensive, and smooth. "Sergeant Crawford, you've been in the media quite a bit since this incident, haven't you?" "I gave one interview," James replied carefully. "An interview in which you criticized the royal family's handling of this matter. Isn't it possible your testimony here today is colored by your personal grievances?" "No," James said firmly. "My testimony is colored by what I witnessed. The facts don't change based on my feelings about what happened afterward." The lawyer tried a few more approaches, but James remained calm and consistent. His military training served him well. Then Frederick took the stand. The young man was visibly shaking as he swore his oath. When asked to describe what happened, his voice broke almost immediately. "I was driving to see friends," he began. "A video notification popped up on my phone. I know I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But I did. And I kept watching because it was funny and I thought, ... I thought I was a good enough driver to handle it." He paused, wiping his eyes. "I didn't see the bend. I didn't see Princess Anne's car. By the time I looked up, it was too late. I tried to brake, tried to turn, but the car was already spinning." "What do you remember about the impact?" his lawyer asked gently. "The sound. Just this horrible, crashing sound, and then smoke. And then I saw her, Princess Anne, standing there, and I realized what I'd almost done. His voice dropped to a whisper. I almost killed someone because I couldn't wait to watch a stupid video. The lawyer let the silence sit for a moment before asking, What do you want to say to Princess Anne, if you could? Frederick looked up, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. There's no excuse. Nothing I can say will ever make this right. I was selfish and careless, and I nearly took someone's mother, someone's grandmother, away from her family. I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Even the judge seemed moved. When it was the prosecution's turn, they were less gentle. Mr. Parker Bowles. You've had a driver's license for 4 years, correct? Yes. In that time, have you received any speeding tickets? Frederick hesitated. Two speeding tickets in 4 years. So this isn't the first time you've driven recklessly. Those were different. I was young, you're 22 now. You were young then too? Clearly you didn't learn from those experiences. Frederick had no answer. The prosecution continued. The video you were watching, it wasn't an emergency alert. It wasn't a navigation instruction. It was entertainment, correct? Yes. So you prioritized your entertainment over the safety of everyone on that road. Ah, yes, I did. The words hung in the air like an accusation and a confession combined. When both sides rested, the judge announced he would deliberate and deliver a verdict in 1 week. The courtroom slowly emptied. Outside, James walked past the protesters and supporters, ignoring shouted questions from reporters. He felt drained. Testifying had brought everything back. The fear, the adrenaline, the desperate race against physics. A hand touched his arm. He turned to find Tom Parker Bowles standing there. The man looked exhausted, aged by the ordeal. Sergeant Crawford, Tom said quietly. I wanted to thank you for saving Princess Anne's life, and for telling the truth even when it was difficult. James nodded, unsure what to say. My son made a terrible mistake, Tom continued. He deserves to face consequences. Real consequences. I don't want special treatment for him. I just want... His voice caught. I just want him to learn from this. To become better. I hope he does, James said honestly. I don't want to see him destroyed. I want to see him changed. Tom's eyes were wet. Thank you for that. As Tom walked away, James felt something shift inside him. This wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about accountability leading to growth. The week passed slowly. Media speculation ran wild. Some predicted Frederick would receive a lenient sentence due to his connections. Others insisted the judge would make an example of him. James tried to ignore it all. He prepared for his new position with Princess Anne, went through background checks and security protocols, and tried to heal his shoulder with physiotherapy. Finally, the day of sentencing arrived. The courtroom was packed again. Frederick stood before the judge, his face pale but composed. The judge began to speak. Everyone leaned forward to hear what justice would look like in this case. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Frederick Parker Bowles. Mr. Parker Bowles, you stand before this court having pleaded guilty to dangerous driving and using a mobile phone while driving. These are not minor infractions. They are serious offenses that endangered lives. The courtroom was silent except for the rain pattering against the windows. I have read the statements from all parties involved. I have reviewed the evidence. I have considered your age, your remorse, and your lack of serious prior convictions. I have also considered the severity of what nearly occurred. Frederick stood perfectly still, his hands clasped in front of him. If not for the extraordinary actions of Sergeant James Crawford, we would likely be holding a very different proceeding today. Possibly an inquest into the death of Her Royal Highness Princess Anne. That fact cannot be ignored or minimized. The judge paused, letting that reality settle. However, I must also acknowledge your genuine remorse, your immediate acceptance of responsibility, your emotional testimony. These factors suggest you understand the gravity of your actions. Tom Parker Bowles leaned forward, his knuckles white, as he gripped the bench in front of him. The sentence of this court is as follows. You are banned from driving for 18 months. You will serve 200 hours of community service, specifically with road safety organizations where you will share your experience with young drivers. You will pay a fine of £5,000. Frederick's shoulders sagged with relief. No prison time. But the judge wasn't finished. Additionally, I am ordering you to undergo counseling to address the behaviors that led to this incident. And I am requiring you to meet with Princess Anne, should she consent, to apologize directly and hear from her the impact of your actions. That last requirement made Frederick look up sharply. The judge met his gaze. You nearly took a life, Mr. Parker Bowles. The victim of your crime deserves to be heard. If she chooses not to meet with you, I will respect that decision. But you must make the offer through proper channels. With genuine intention, I will, Your Honor, Frederick said, his voice barely audible. You have been given a second chance that many don't receive. What you do with it will define your character far more than what brought you here today. Court dismissed. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Frederick and his father pushed through without comment, climbing into a waiting car. James watched from a distance. The sentence seemed fair, not too lenient, not excessively harsh. Focused on rehabilitation and accountability, he turned to leave and found Princess Anne standing behind him, her protection officer nearby. You were here? James asked, surprised. I wanted to hear it myself, Anne said. I thought the judge handled it well. He wants Frederick to meet with you. To apologize. Anne nodded slowly. No. And I will meet with him when he's ready. Not because the court ordered it, but because I think it might help him heal. You're very gracious, ma'am. I'm practical, and corrected with a slight smile. Anger and bitterness don't change what happened. If that young man can learn from this, if he can become someone who helps prevent others from making the same mistake, then something good comes from a terrible situation. The meeting took place at Gatcombe Park. Frederick arrived with his father, both looking nervous. Anne greeted them calmly in a private sitting room. James was present as her protection officer, standing quietly near the door. Frederick could barely look at her at first. When he finally spoke, his voice shook. Your Royal Highness, I don't even know how to begin. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Sit down, Frederick, Anne said, not unkindly. You wanted to apologize. I'm listening. Frederick sat, his hands trembling. I was careless, unforgivably careless. I treated driving like it was nothing serious, like it was just something to do while being entertained. And because of that, I nearly took your life. He looked up, tears in his eyes. You're someone's daughter, someone's mother. You have grandchildren. You do important work. And I nearly ended all of that because I couldn't wait 30 seconds to watch a video. Anne listened without interrupting. I can't undo what I did, Frederick continued. I can't go back and make different choices. But I can promise you that I will never be that person again. I'm working with road safety charities now. I talk to young drivers about what happened. I show them the footage. I tell them how close I came to killing someone. How do they react? And asked, most of them are shocked. Some cry. Some get angry at themselves because they realize they've done the same thing. But they listen. And if even one person changes their behavior because of what I did, it's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's something. Anne was quiet for a long moment, studying the young man before her. Frederick, what you did was terrible, but you're doing something important now. You're taking responsibility. You're trying to prevent others from making the same mistake. That matters, does it? Frederick asked, his voice breaking. Does it really matter when I nearly killed you? Yes, Anne said firmly. It does. Because the alternative is that you do nothing. That you waste this second chance. That would make it all meaningless. She leaned forward slightly. You can't change the past, but you can shape the future. For yourself and for others. That's what I ask of you. Don't let this define you as a tragedy. Let it define you as a turning point. Frederick nodded, unable to speak through his tears. Tom Parker Bowles spoke for the first time. Your Royal Highness, our family is deeply grateful for your grace. We don't deserve it. Grace isn't about deserving, Anne replied. It's about choosing to move forward with wisdom instead of anger. As they prepared to leave, Frederick paused at the door. "Ex-Sergeant Crawford," he said, turning to James, "I never thanked you properly. You saved her life. You risked yourself. And then you told the truth even when it cost you. You're what I should have been." James stepped forward. "I was doing my job, but you're doing yours now too. Keep talking to those young drivers. Keep telling your story. Lives will be saved because of it." Frederick extended his hand. James shook it. After they left, Anne turned to James. "That was generous of you." "He's trying," James said simply. "That's all any of us can do." The months that followed brought changes for everyone involved. Frederick completed his community service with dedication that surprised even his supervisors. His talks to young drivers became increasingly powerful, raw, with honest emotion. Traffic safety organizations began requesting him specifically. His story, combined with the footage of the near tragedy, had genuine impact. James settled into his role as Anne's personal protection officer. The relationship was different from standard palace security, more trust, more autonomy. Anne valued his judgment and his honesty. The palace quietly dropped the internal review of James's conduct. With Anne's vocal support and public sentiment firmly on his side, pursuing punishment would have been terrible optics. Camilla and Anne's relationship remained cordial but distant. The incident had revealed underlying tensions that couldn't be easily smoothed over. But both women were professionals. They maintained courtesy at public events. King Charles, caught in the middle, chose a careful path. He publicly praised James for his heroism and privately ensured that Frederick faced appropriate consequences. It was a balancing act that satisfied no one completely but prevented open family warfare. A year after the accident, Frederick gave a major interview to mark the anniversary. He had completed all his court requirements. His driving ban would end soon. "Will you drive again?" the interviewer asked. "Eventually, yes," Frederick said, "but never the same way. Never casually. Never with my phone anywhere near my hand. Driving is a responsibility, not a right. I forgot that, and someone almost died." "Do you think about that day often?" "Every single day," Frederick said quietly. "I see Princess Anne's face, Sergeant Crawford running, the crash, all of it. And I think about the family dinner I would have stolen from them, the charity work that wouldn't have happened, the lives she's touched that would have ended." He paused, composing himself. "I got a second chance. Most people don't. I'm trying to honor that by making sure fewer people need second chances." The interview went viral. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was human. Raw. Real. James watched it from his flat, where he now lived alone after a quiet breakup that had nothing to do with the incident, but everything to do with the stress that followed. He felt something like peace watching Frederick speak. This was why he'd told the truth, not for revenge or fame. For accountability that led to change. His phone buzzed. A text from Princess Anne watched Frederick's interview. "Proud of him. Proud of you too. See you tomorrow." James smiled and set his phone down. Outside his window, the city lights glowed against the dark sky. Somewhere out there, a young driver might see Frederick's interview and decide to put their phone down. Someone else might slow down on a dangerous road. A life might be saved by the ripples of one terrible moment and the choices that followed. James's shoulders still ached on cold days, a permanent reminder. But he didn't mind. Some scars were worth carrying. They told a story of split-second courage, of uncomfortable truths, and of redemption earned through genuine change. It was a story worth remembering. And in the end, that was what mattered most.